back with another Solian top 5 video with honorable mentions and the build. So this is everything you should be playing in ranked right now after the new patch, the patch that introduced the recipes and all the crazy changes and made the map, not depressing. So yeah, there's a bit of different builds going around, different gods being played. So I'm gonna try and keep it short and sweet and tell you all the info that you need to know. Of course, I am a Grandmaster, so you can trust what I'm saying when it comes to these things. So yeah, without further ado, let's get in right to number 5. Number 5, I have Cabrakan. Cabrakan changes are pretty insane. If you've messed around with him at all or seen some of my gameplays, you see how much pressure you can bring. And a lot of these characters you're going to see win lane. It's a snowball meta now. The meta has definitely changed. It's much easier to end the game now. At least in my games, I've seen that. So a lot of these characters are going to be good at winning lane and transition to the team fights pretty well. So characters that are just going to try and farm till late game are going to be a little less good. And I'm going to talk about one character specifically that you probably recognize. So we're going to start with Vamp Shroud. Basically every game on this character, you need the MP5. The mana that you get back from it is very, very strong, that it uses a lot of mana. From his Tremors, we go this little bad boy, Chalice, with a tier 1 Pythags, Teleport. I'm going to put the recipes down here just so it's like kind of easier to organize, so it's going to always be at the bottom right. So this is our starting build. You can also go 5 health potions, 1 multi-pot if you're afraid of like getting poked out a little bit early game, but you are very strong with this build early game. You go straight into that Pythags. I like Pythags. It helps you hyper farm in this character. This character still does struggle at PvEing, even with the low cooldown on his 3. So I really like to go Pythags. It just gives you crazy sustain in lane, helps you out trade the enemy soul laner and get totems. And then I go straight into the breastplate. What you're going to recognize is that you're going to overcap with this build. And some of the other builds I'm going to show you, you're going to overcap CDR. But we do not care, okay? Like that one meme, we do not care. Because we're going Pridwin, which is going to put us over cap, but we're not buying Pridwin for the CDR. We're literally buying it for the prots and the OP passive that this gives. This is the best glyph in the game, especially for tanks. So we're going blue Pridwin. Going to round out with the Blood Soaked Shroud, which did get buffed, and it's also quite strong now, especially on a lot of Guardian solos. And then last item, if you need a Spectral because they have crit, go Spectral. If they have a lot of auto attackers, but they're not crit, maybe Mid-Guardian. Sometimes I just throw in a Binding here, a nice prots for each. Notice that you're not going Prophetic on Cab. He's not the greatest actually stacking that, so he's one of the few characters I don't go Prophetic on right now. But yeah, we go that. We go TP, and we usually go Blink if they have a lot of like CC, like an Ares, Daji. You don't have CC in your kit, so maybe consider going Beads. And if you feel like you don't need Blink to initiate, somebody else is initiating your team, then you can go something like a Horrific to dive even harder on. So yeah, something to consider. I also start the game with either Red Shard if we don't clear very well at the back camps with my mid laner. If our clear is pretty bad, I'll go the Red Shard or whatever it's called. And then if not, then I'll go the cooldown shard, which is called, I always forget what it's called, whatever. You guys know what I'm talking about, though. So yeah, coming in number 4, we have Osiris, another character that got mega buff going into this patch, and it brought him back into the meta. Like I said, winning lane is really strong right now. That's why I like to go Death Toll on him. This character is already very strong at winning lane, but this is just crazy. And I think Death Embrace is probably the most underrated starter upgrade in the entire game right now. Go tier 1 shield if you're against a physical. If you're against a magical, go tier 1 Oni Hunters because you're going to be building that either way. 4 health pots, teleportation device so that you can just fly around the map. And then I usually go Gooseberries on him, but Bountiful Bow is basically good on everybody, so you could go Bow on him and get lower cooldowns. So Osiris cooldowns are already pretty low. One little difference is you can't go Glad Shield here. It's kind of preference in my opinion right now. I think Glad Shield's kind of overrated. I like to go Phalanx. People keep asking me in my comments why I go this. It has 71 Fizz prots on it, 21 magical prots, 150 health, 20 HP 5, 10% CCR. It buffs your minions, and it's the cheapest defense item in the game, basically. So you can't go wrong with this. It's just a really, really good stat stick. And it helps out the rest of your build, especially because we're going to be going Prophetic, and you need a lot of prots to get the passive mitigation from that. So we're going to go Prophetic and then into Oni Hunters. Keep in mind, when you're fully stacked Prophetic and you have an Oni Hunters with 3 enemies near you, you are at the item mitigation cap. So with 2 items alone, you'll be at the item mitigation cap, but don't forget that your passive and your abilities on characters add on to that. They changed it so you can actually add on. You don't just reach the cap, so characters can actually make use of mitigation items while also having mitigation in their kit. And then, of course, we're going Blue Pridwin, like I said, pretty much the best tank item in the game. Go into a Death Embrace. Very, very strong starter. You are so tanky late game with this build. Osiris late game falls off no matter what build you have. Unless you're going like full damage, you're not going to be able to kill people. Even if you are full damage, you're going to get one shot. With a tanky build like this, you can sit in front of people, and your usefulness is being a sponge, being a piece of meat standing in front of the enemies to prevent them from hitting your backline. And this character is probably the tankiest in the game at this, besides maybe like Erlang or something. So it's very, very strong. You can go like a kin size here, but again, it's not that great against like carries now that they nerfed it against them. But you could go kin size and slam their tanks, maybe hit their carries a little bit with that. Most of the time, I just go like a Midgardian or a Spectral if they have crit, like I said. But you can never go wrong with like a binding, or even like if they have some shields going on, like an erosion to round out the build. But a lot of times it's just Midgardian, and makes it very hard for their ADC to play the game with the Midgardian and the attack speed slow on your 3. Most of the time it's either Blink. Most of the time it's just Blink on Osiris, to be honest. But you could also go with like Thorns. I actually think Thorns is somewhat viable on characters like Osiris alone that are very all in, and it makes it hard for them to play the game, even harder for them to play the game when you have Thorns. So yeah, that's Osiris at number 4. Pressure character, very good in this meta. Number 3, we have Arthur, another character that got buffed a ton. You notice that whenever you quad buff characters, it makes them viable. Pretty similar build to the last one, except you're going to be going Bluestone. Bluestone's just still strong on Arthur, helps his clear, and late game helps his damage a lot. That tier 1 into 4 health potions. Tier 1 if you're against a physical, if you're against a magical, go tier 1 prophetic, actually. You can also do that on Osiris, but you can also go tier 1 Oni Hunters. It's really up to you. All are good in my opinion. You're going to be going those items either way. Teleport. So I do like to go Glad still on Arthur just because he has so many abilities, and that cooldown is very strong for him early game. Straight into that prophetic. Oni Hunters. If they have like a magical jungler, you can go ahead and go Oni Hunters into prophetic. Keep in mind, it's fine to get a prophetic 3rd item. People think it's bad. It's not. You're going to get value out of it. You get value out of it right when you buy it, but you're going to get value the entire time the game is going on. Just make sure that you're trying to get those stacks, just poking people, maybe when you don't need to, just so you can get some stacks going. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to, is what I mean. Bluestone. You're going to be going Bluestone Brooch, of course. Definitely don't go Redstone. I mean, you can go Redstone in some scenarios. If they have a lot of attackers on their team, the attack speed that it gives you on Arthur isn't very useful at all for his passive recharge. Some people like to try it, but it's really not useful at all. Brooch is still very, very strong. It still does a lot of damage. And a lot of times it's the Spectral, like I said. Binding's also very strong on Arthur. Helps with all of his damage and proc items. Plus, you can't really go wrong with 70 total Fizz Prot, or 70 total Prot and 200 HP. I go Blink always on Arthur. If they have like an Ares or a lot of CC, you're really worried or you're not comfortable on Arthur, then you can consider going Beads. But I basically 99.9% of the time go Blink. Just make sure you have your charge ult up for late game team fights. And if you Blink ult and start a fight, who cares if they go on you? You've done your job. You've probably gotten active, and you could probably use some abilities and get the hell in there. And yeah, this is the build. Go this build every single game on Arthur. You'll be feeling good. Coming at number 2, the only characters that actually this character got nerfed, but they didn't get nerfed enough. It's number 2 is Yorman Gunder. Tainted Steel into Chronos Pendant is still going to be the play on him. You can go a Vampiric if they really have no healing whatsoever on their team. You can consider going the Vampiric, but the thing is, Tainted is still good because the upgrade makes you tanky late game, makes it really hard for them to kill you. So that's why I still like to go it regardless. And plus, they're always going to have ADC with lifesteal. We're going to be going Chalice plus another health potion. Then we're going to go Teleport straight into that Chronos Pendant. I just realized you can't go. I didn't show the recipe for Arthur. You want to be going Bow on Arthur, but you can also go Sturdy Stew, so keep that in mind. But Bow's very strong on him. Going Glad Shield into Prophetic on this guy again. I like to go Manticore still on him just because he has a lot of CC and it helps him with his like damage late game to actually one-shot people. He can proc a lot of spikes with his ult. Low cooldowns on his 2 and his 3, so you're just procking that non-stop. Going Tainted Breastplate always. Unless they have like 3 magical damage dealers, then you can go the other one just because it gives you more magical prot. But this is the full build. Pretty simple. I go Bow on him as well. Bountiful Bow is probably the strongest recipe. You're going to be seeing that in a lot of builds. You consider going Binding somewhere in the build. Maybe replace Prophetic if you don't like going Prophetic for some reason. You can replace that with a Binding. It's going to help all of your damage numbers. And of course, Spectral, Midgardian, stuff like that. Situational items. Last item if you want those. But yeah, Ethereal rounds out the build really nice and it does a lot of damage. You can proc it very easily on this character with his range and all of his pools on the ground. So yeah, that's Yorman number 2. Before we get to number 1, we're going to go through the honorable mentions. Ama is our first honorable mention. I think this character is very strong after the bust, but the thing is, like I said, it's more of a snowball meta and like win lane meta, especially in ranked. In competitive, you're going to see this character played a lot probably, and she's very good at objectives, but in most of your ranked games, you're not like, you and your team aren't really communicating and playing around these objectives perfectly. So I'd rather you play a character that can win lane really hard, and Ama definitely still doesn't win lane that hard or even at all. If you're not comfortable on this character, you can rush Berserkers, but I like to go Vital first. It's just so strong, helps with PvEing. You one-shot everything, and you get, 85% attack speed when you're 1, and your Vital Amplifier are proc, which is just absurd. Of course, I should show you guys the starting build, which is tier 1 of that, plus 4 HP pots, and a Teleport. But anyway, yeah, straight into that Vital Amplifier. Gooseberries on her, of course, which I'll throw down here. Gooseberries are what you're going to want to build. into a Berserkers, into a Shoguns. If they have a lot of physical damage, you can consider going Berserkers and Phalanx. I think that's also strong. Phalanx is just a cheap, really good defense item. I like to go Spirit Robe here. You could also go Pridwin on Amma. It's not as strong on her, just because it procs like after ult, and usually the fight's kind of won or lost by the end of your ult timing. But you can definitely go a blue Pridwin here, and that's also strong. Consider going Spirit Robe, really up to you. One thing you got to remember about this build is you have 2 items that are giving you no defense. Vital Amplifier and Death Embrace give you no procs whatsoever. So you are kind of squishy with this build. So I like to round out the build with something to make me like pretty tanky, like a item that gives me both procs, or if they have crit and a spectral. Just a defense item is basically what I'm saying. You don't really want to ever go another damage item here. So I'll just throw Midgardian, and this would probably be the build on her. Spectral, another situational item. Binding, still nice on her. Arc Druids is also good on her because of her auto attacks. It'll help you kill people late game, and also gives you defense for each side. So that's something you consider going. Maybe you can go Arc Druids here, then Death Embrace, then a blue Pridwin last if you don't need a Midgardian or Spectral. You know, just you can mix it up. But yeah, Amma definitely honorable mention. Gonna be good right now. I'm throwing Karen in here as well. I think this character is busted, and people playing him in support. This is the build. I actually already have it saved, so I guess you can just look at it here. Definitely go Bow on him. I like to go Shell just to stack up those shields. It makes it really hard for the enemy team to play. You can go Beads because you got to be worried about people crippling out your dash or stopping your dash. Or you can just go Blink and get the hell in there. But the thing is, the character doesn't really need Blink. You can just dash in and you won't get punished. You are so tanky on this character. I like to go Vamp Chronos Pendant for the early game because he does have long cooldowns. You need that cooldown reduction from Chronos Pendant to actually be able to farm and trade in lane. And you're still tanky. It's going to be hard for you to get ganked with all of your dashes and your CC immunity from your ult and all of your CC and your shielding. It just keeps going. Attack speed reduction. But yeah, this is the build. Some proc items. Again, your overcap CDR. We do not care. This build is OP. Sometimes you can go Tainted. I have noticed that it makes it a little bit harder to farm just because you're kind of mana hungry, and Vamp does give you 10 more power, which is noticeable. But nonetheless, it's still, still strong. But yeah, I like Bloodsoak because you have so many AoE abilities. You have 4 damaging abilities, so you can proc it a ton late game. But yeah, that's the build. Karen has another honorable mention. And the last honorable mention before we get to number 1. You guys are probably already guessing who number 1 is. Is Herc. I also have his build saved for him. This is the build. I like going Scepter on him. Scepter is actually pretty strong right now. I like to go Tainted so that you can have a tank item late game so you're not super squishy. Because if you go something like Bluestone here, you're going to be so squishy with 2 damage items on a Hercules. You can consider going Prophetic here instead of Gauntlet of Thebes. He's a little bit harder to stack Prophetic on just because he doesn't have those ranged, easy to hit abilities. But nonetheless, you can go something like this. Go Blink if you don't really need the beads. Teleport every game. Gooseberries for sure because it's like a little mini Golden Blade for Herc. You can also go the other build where you still go Sigil, Golden Blade into all the same items that I just showed you. It's really up to you. This is just an easier way to farm. Makes it a little bit easier to trade as well because you don't have to worry about guaranteeing hitting your autos or you still hit really hard. But yeah, helps with farming for sure. So that's another build you can go on Herc. And then at number 1, we have, drumroll please. Yep, Sun Wukong. Everybody already guessed it. Oh, wow, so fun. Yep, they didn't nerf this character at all. He's still good in every single lane. He's still good at winning lane. He's good at losing lane, but not really losing at all. You know what I mean? Because he can't really get killed, can't get ganked. He's good at farming. Strong at all points of the game. He has an OP passive. I mean, what more can I say? You can go the Soul Eater route if you want. I find that you do enough damage with this build I'm about to show you that you don't even need this Soul Eater, but if you're comfortable with that, then go for it. You don't need to go teleport on this character because he's really good at farming and can get back to lane by burning, but I still like to go teleport a lot of the time, especially if I'm in a hard matchup. Still go Glad Shield on him. That early CDRs are very, very nice. I like to go Prophetic on him personally, but I've seen people go just straight into like a Binding Arc Druids type build, which is also strong, so I'll just show that real quick. Probably a little bit easier, but he's really good at proccing Prophetic because he can just one people from a distance. So you can go something like this, Manticore into a blue Pridwin, and then to a Bluestone Brooch. Almost always Bluestone Brooch. Again, basically if they have auto attackers, you can go Redstone. Still pretty strong on him. Into like a Binding last item. You just have a bunch of proc effects. Manticore procs, you have Binding for all of your damages, your Glad Shield procs, your Arc Druid procs, your Pridwin procs, your Manticore procs. It all just combines really well. It's a nice build. The only thing I'd replace personally if I was going to go Prophetic is probably go it instead of Manticore. And you'll be super tanky with this build again, and you'll still do enough damage. You just won't have the Manticore procs to help with. Bow definitely on this character. Very strong for him. That CDR is going to be really good. You don't really want to go Gooseberries on a character that doesn't auto attack all that much. And then Relic, most of the time it's Blink. It's usually Blink Beads for me. If I go Teleport, I'll just go Teleport Blink. If I really need the beads, I'll just go Beads. But those are the only relics I really ever go on this character. So yeah, that's Sun Wukong at number 1. there are your top 5 with honorable mentions and the builds for Soul Lane right now. If you guys enjoyed the video, if you learned anything, which I hope you did, then feel free to leave a like, comment down below, ask me or tell me what you think of the builds, and let me know what you guys are playing in ranked right now, what you're having success with. If you like all the changes, like all the quad buffs they've given to all these characters. Personally, I like the patch. I think it's really fun, and big changes like this make the meta fun and make sure it doesn't stay stale. Make it fresh, I guess, is the opposite of stale. So yeah, there you go. I love you all. Stay safe and healthy as always, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.